Hello, my name's JR. I'm the Executive Director of MakeHaven, and we're here to equip people with the tools to design, invent, and create. Let me give you a tour. We have a large space with a whole bunch of tools. The idea is that you can create almost anything. And the best way is just to walk around and look at them. So let me show you some of the tools. We have a coffee roasting station. This is for home brewing. We have a group of home brewers that work together to brew beer. They're building an arcade cabinet. You'll see a lot of works in progress. We have an initiative around biology, and people are able to do things, for example, with the mycelium of mushroom or algae in this space. It's also an educational space where we've held workshops where people draw on a petri dish, for example. Coming back here, we have our screen printing area. When I talk about a screen, it's something where you have an area where ink can go through, but you've blocked off the rest. This is a holder so that you can ink onto a shirt or other materials. And there's an exposure table so you can make a screen and lots of other things related to it. Moving further over here, you can see up on the wall there's a picture of a fish. That is something that someone had carved, and they would carve it on a plate and then they would roll it underneath this press, or perhaps this old school press, which also is a letter press using those like old type letters. Moving further, we get into 3D printing. We've got a variety of different 3D printers. This one is a resin printer, so it uses a polymer that hardens with ultraviolet laser light, and it will draw out of this bucket of ooze as the laser is curing. And the advantage is it has really high detailed parts, which have a variety of different chemical or resins you can use that have different properties. The disadvantage is it's kind of messy and more expensive. Then we have one that prints nylon with little chopped carbon fiber embedded in the nylon. That's great because the nylon is more resistant to weather, it's more pliable, and it has strength. Then you have a whole fleet of standard 3D printers. These print with a plastic called PLA. It's not as durable to all weather, but it's cheap, easy to print, and the most commonly used material for prototyping. As we move back, we get into our radio communications area. This has, of course, ham radio and talking, but you can also think about the Internet of Things, digital communication, Wi-Fi, all the different ways that we use radio waves. But a good place to start is get your ham radio license, which you can do here. We have a whole bench for electronics. We've got oscilloscope, we've got soldering, there's a magnifier to inspect your work, and just other things for doing electronics. As you come over here, you see that there's a good area for sewing. This is an embroidery machine. So it's one of the CNC machines. That means computer numeric control. Basically, you work in a design software, and then that allows you to put together a design that the computer, the motors in the machine can understand. And you see designs that people have made using 6 different colors of embroidery. We have some other machines. This is a blind stitch hammer for doing clothing where you're hiding the stitch. This is a heavy-duty sewing machine, a sailrite. It will punch through the heavy material of a sail or multiple layers of denim or leather. A great straight stitch machine. We have quilting as well. This is covered up. This is on a big gantry, so you can move around and do your quilting. There's some knitting equipment over here, as well as a variety of other sewing machines and an area for laying it out. We have a large format printer that can print on banner material or just, big posters for art, or on vinyl for stickers. Laser cutters are a favorite of many people in a makerspace. They're pretty easy to design for. It's like you design in an Illustrator-like program. We use Inkscape, which is an open source version, but it will cut through thin plywood material, thin acrylic, It will engrave on things, so woodworkers love it to put little engravings and designs on things. But you can take these and assemble things, assemble small prototypes. An example is somebody building a desk, built this, they assembled it and put it together as a concept, and then they were able to put it together in large format here. This was done in the wood shop. They didn't laser cut this, but it shows you the translation from prototype into a larger full-size item. We have computers and a light table, some things for framing, a vinyl cutter plotter, and as we come over here, we get into ceramics, both hand building, and we have a couple of pottery wheels. Members share use of the kiln and fire their materials. We have glazes, so enough that people can get going with the ceramics area. Back here, we've got casting and mold making. That is where you might have done some work to 3D print something or make the first master copy, and you can use a pressure pot, use a vacuum chamber, vibration table, and resin to make a reproduction. So typically you make a silicone mold that's flexible, and you're going to pour a plastic into it, and that can have different colors and additives and properties, and then you'll pop it out, and now you've got a copy of that 3D print much faster than you would have done otherwise, or maybe your hand sculpted item. I'm going to put on some safety glasses, and we will walk through the woodworking shop. So this is a very popular shop. We have a whole bunch or a few benches here. One of the things that's nice about these benches is that they have hold downs. You can hit a hammer in there and it will hold a board. So lots of ways to fixture your work. We have a group of folks that like to be able to build in just using their hands without the powered tools. So we accommodate that. We also have a sharpener, and you pretty much using these tools build anything that you'd build with all the power tools, just going to take a lot more time. As you come down here, we have a variety. DeWalt/Stanley Black & Decker has been generous in giving us some power tools, made a donation. So we have a good selection of power tools. We have a table router, nice one from JSM, of course, a drill press, your bandsaws, multiple bandsaws, so that we have different blades. You can do a thinner blade or a thicker blade for resawing. One of the things that a lot of woodworkers appreciate is that there's a 16-inch joiner. It's got carbide blades on a helical spindle, so it does a really nice job. We've got a drum sander. It's got an open end so that you can flip things over and do two sides. Nice planer. And as you come over here, you can see that there's the table saw, the chop saw, and a lot of folks are a fan of the lathe. Of course, for folks that aren't familiar with a lathe, you're putting a piece of wood in here, and then you're carving it down to make spindles and bowls and all sorts of round things. Looking in the back corner, we've got another type of CNC machine. This is a CNC wood router. It goes around on your 3-axis to cut things out. A lot of folks might make a sign, carve somebody's name, or more intricate designs. We've got a very big version of that. Takes a little more to learn, but it can do a full piece of plywood. That's in fact from one piece of plywood, how that little desk I'd shown earlier was created by cutting that design out on the big CNC machine. I'm gonna head over to the machine shop. We'll cut through the main space. And the machine shop is one of the places where people will often say, wow, because there's so few places where you can get access to this level of industrial equipment. In the In one corner, we have a whole stained glass area. There's a small kiln for slumping. There's also materials for cutting and working with glass. We have a prototype injection molder, a mini injection molder, a vacuum former, and a compression oven, as well as a grinder on the other side that helps people work with plastics. There's some community initiatives to do some recycled plastic and artisan projects that way. And then you have tools that seem familiar in many cases because they look like the woodshop tools, but they're metal oriented, so they're heavier duty. We've got a vertical bandsaw, horizontal bandsaw. A lot of people ask what the horizontal bandsaw does, but think about you have a long strip of metal and you want to cut it for table legs or something else in regular intervals. And this is going to lift up and it will come down and it will nicely cut that. So you get a nice repeatable ability to work with long metal materials where you wouldn't be able to do that on the traditional bandsaw. You've got, of course, a drill press. You've got grinders. We have tube benders. We have all sorts of pieces here. Notable is a couple of Bridgeport mills, a little bit of Connecticut history here. They hail from Bridgeport themselves. But these were how like everything was made that was like a shaped block of metal back in the day. You've got these rails and you can turn them and you can move on X, Y, and Z axes. And you have different cutting heads, some that appear somewhat like they're a drill. You can do something to cut a surface. There's different end mills out there that allow you to shape by manually controlling. A lot of this has gone to computer, and we have a computer one I'll show you in a minute, but the manual gives you a real tactile sense. It can also be quicker in a prototyping scenario. And so it's the perfect kind of tool for this space. We do have a measurement device called a DRO, so you can at least get a readout of exactly where you are and get pretty high precision that way. As you come over here past the little spray booth and some measuring devices, you get to the metal lathes. These are the same concept as the wood lathe. We have two of them, although they're heavier built, and you're adjusting everything using knobs and turning things because you wouldn't be able to hand hold the cutting tool when you are turning metal. But another fundamental machine tool combined with the Bridgeport, you can do an awful lot. A tool that we're really proud of and a lot of people get excited about is this water jet cutter. So it puts thousands of pounds of pressure through this tube and then directs it down through a tip with a diamond nozzle. It injects an abrasive and it will essentially just rapidly erode. It will cut through basically anything. That includes cutting through stone. People have cut lots of stone, plates of metal of various thicknesses. We can see somebody's been cutting through a nice plate of stainless steel, maybe boat parts. And it's a wonderful tool for anything you need to cut that is flat and nice, clean edges. Sandblaster. And we're gonna walk back here and take a look at our welding area. We have a number of different welders. We have TIG, MIG, oxyacetylene. See all of those. We have a hand plasma cutter. We have an induction forge. This tool's one that has different coils that fit in here. You put metal inside it, it becomes red hot, and then you can actually do blacksmithing on the anvil. We have a computer-controlled kiln that's really useful when people are doing knife making. You might imagine in the metal shop that making a knife is something that people like to do an artisan one, because you can cut your blanks on the water jet cutter, you can cut down and grind out the edge, you can treat the metal inside the kiln, you could go to the wood shop and build your handle, you could cut out the leather for the sheath and sew it together in the sewing area. You could put a custom engraving using the laser cutter, and you'll probably figure a way to use a 3D printer. So there's a lot of ways to find projects that cover a lot of ground. Coming back out, we have an area here for jewelry making. So lots of little tools and, miniatures of the welding and soldering. We have a kaya cast for casting metal. So that's where you make a mold and you can cast specific shapes. Little bike repair and maintenance area. And then we're moving forward towards our CNC machine. This is just like the Bridgeports, except it's got the 3-axis control by computer. And so you can cut very precisely the same thing over and over. So a lot of times you would maybe cut a basic thing manually, and then as you hone in on your design, you would use the CNC machine. These are for sheet metal. So you would bend, roll through, take a big sheet through here, and with different tensions and fixtures in here, you can get different rolls. Like you could make a bumper, for example, for a car. These things, along with various other tools, we will keep rolling backwards. One of the things that people ask me about is what sort of experience they require. And actually, MakeHaven is a no experience required place. You do need to be 18 years old or above. It's an adult makerspace, but we have a whole cohort of volunteers who show people how to get started. So we're able to do this with no experience required. We have a small room store. So materials are things that people purchase themselves, at least the consumables. The membership gives access to the space. We have a media room. So people can do podcasts, recordings, those sorts of things in here. In the back, there is a whole area where there's storage and there's a tool lending library. So we have shelves of tools that members can borrow for a number of days and then bring back. So great for people doing home projects. We'll wander on to the kitchen, but beyond the scope of what we're going to be able to walk, we have an outdoor patio with a pizza oven. We have a classroom upstairs. We also have a number of workspaces that startups rent and artists rent to be on premise near the tools, but have a home base and a desk. That's separate than the membership, but that is something that people are excited about and do. This is our kitchen. It is not commercial, so we can't make things for resale, but we can make things for prototyping, for fun. We have events and activities where we share things together, like making pasta or making pizza dough for the pizza oven. There's a dehydrator, there's canning stuff, there's sous vide, all sorts of fun. That is pretty much brought us full circle around. Thank you for taking the walk through MakeHaven, and I hope you will come and visit us, take a tour in person, and consider becoming a member.